Alright, so the only way I can describe this is by being formal, maybe giving some backstory about Project Resistance, because I think it was revealed during Capcom's Resident Evil Ambassador program, and they said they were working on a new Resident Evil title. And we didn't know what it was at the time. Capcom basically said, we're working on it, we'll give you more information. There's people currently testing the game as we speak. Everything sounds cool, right? Then the speculations and the expectations started to pour in like a fucking flood. Everyone started saying, hey, this is going to be Outbreak File 3. This is going to be Resident Evil Remake 3. This is going to be RE8. A lot of this jumbled up more and more and more. And I was like, I need to see gameplay before I formally cover this. And they put out like a little teaser a little bit after the fact, and I was like, okay, this doesn't look like Outbreak at all. I tempered my expectations. I'm like, there's a guy in a black silhouette that looks like Wesker putting on tyrant gloves and manipulating it somehow, some way, fighting against 4 people. I was like, I need to see more, because I don't know if I'm going to like this or hate it. Maybe my mind will change later. I was initially disappointed because I'm like, okay, if it was Outbreak File 3, they could have did something interesting with that aspect, due to the fact that Outbreak not only failed, but the online aspects for that type of game, it really didn't have voice chat. Now we have voice chat, now we have Discord. Those type of co-op ventures would thrive compared to the past. People like their scenarios, and people like, single player, and people like multiplayer and all that stuff. So you could be appeasing all audiences with a Resident Evil Outbreak title. So I can resonate to some extent with people who really wanted File 3. As I said though, I tempered my expectations and I waited, because you never know what Capcom could subvert our expectations with. And then they decided to put out this gameplay trailer today, which solidified the fact that this is not an Outbreak game. It is an asymmetrical third-person horror shooter where you're playing with like 4 people and you have to survive against the Mastermind, who is controlling all these BOWs on the battlefield. He can put out a tyrant, which is admittedly cool, controlling Mr. X. There's going to be a lot more X gon' give it to you memes. Then a little bit after the gameplay, the internet, as it usually does, exploded into this glorious uproar against Project Resistance, as if the creators behind Capcom came in their house, fucked their mom, and shot their dog, all because they aren't getting the game they were possibly expecting. I'm like this, there is positives and negatives to Project Resistance. First and foremost, let's look at the positives for people who really don't understand. This is a side game. Capcom always made side games in the Resident Evil franchise. Revelations 1 and 2, ORC, Umbrella Corps. There is a lot of side projects that goes on with RE. Survivor, you can pick a lot of them off the top of your fucking head. I don't see why you're angry that they put out the occasional side game, as they always do, and you're really not required to buy it. I mean, ORC was non-canon, so it really didn't affect anything at the end of the day when Slant 6 worked on that title. You still had your mainline RE game that came out like, 2 years later, a year later? When did RE6 come out between the gap of ORC and RE6? You still got a mainline game even though it wasn't that great. So what's your bother really? They're gonna do the same thing with the next slew of Resident Evil titles, which I think is in development for next gen. Capcom did say somewhere, is buried somewhere, that they are working on next gen titles. And one of those games have to be a Resident Evil game, because RE is like a cash cow for Capcom. It's always been the cash cow. The top 3 cash cows for Capcom is Street Fighter, Monster Hunter, and Resident Evil. You think they're not going to make a damn good Resident Evil title for next generation, you think that this side game is going to mean fuck all from Neobards, the people who did Onimusha Warlords, even though I thought that was a great port. And they also did like some ports for Capcom on the side. I forget the other ones. I think they did a port for Resident Evil Origins Collection on Switch. Yeah, this is the developer handling this project. That kind of goes into the negative a little bit because they aren't well known outside of ports. So this is their first foray into making a really, really big title. You know what I mean? I don't see the negativity on them doing side games. Like, this is not Yakuza 7 where it's like, okay, you can see the divide because they decided to make an entirely changed gameplay style from its previous formula. That's actually a mainline title. They decided to say, hey, instead of making this a side game, it's a main game now. This is a side project. It's nothing to be mad about for a side project. There's people saying the game is going to be shit, and honestly, unless you played the beta or you've played the full game itself, then you're really just being judgmental at that point, and I would really like to borrow your time machine. I really would. You never know if it could be fun. I know Capcom is chasing trends with this game. They know that stuff like Left 4 Dead was popular. They know that online zombie games are a big popularity trend with a lot of streamers. They know that people did love Left 4 Dead and it had a fan base. I do wish that this game could have been a lot more unique. I wish it could have had a story mode because it doesn't seem to have a plot at all. It just seems to be online multiplayer, and that could really hurt the replay value in the end if you can't do things on your own. And if it's just like wave-based stuff, that could get old single player wise fast, so you need something to spruce up the variety. It's at that point that one must realize if this is going to be an asymmetrical co-op experience, then it being online only, it would come at a bit of a detriment, right? Because you have to deal with the fact of the servers possibly going down in the future or no one playing the game, so the game would be useless in that regard. That being said, once again, it's not the worst thing in the world. There are things to be concerned about, like the developer. They don't have a track record for doing like a lot of big time, releases. There's also like some copy pasta stuff going on. Like, I'm going to be honest, I saw some animations in that trailer that looked like it was directly lifted from RE2, like down to the wire. The same zombie bites, the same sort of animations for Mr. X, the same sort of movements. It looks like it's very copy pasta, except the only difference is you have new characters and it's a Resident Evil experience online. There is some criticisms to be had there, surely, but I think people really, and I said this before, I made videos on this before, you need to learn how to temper your fucking expectations. You really do. Because when you say this should have been Remake 3, when you say this should have been RE8, and there was no indication otherwise, you're just setting yourself up for disappointment at every single convention that they have, at every single piece of news. Learn to expect nothing, and you probably will receive nothing. I mean, I think as a personal, streamer myself, as a person who goes around and plays with friends on Discord and stuff like that, I think this game could be flash in the pan fun that you can't take seriously. And if you're into the whole online multiplayer experience, then this game might be meant for you. If you like zombie survival games online with co-op, then maybe this game is for you. Maybe this game will have an audience. But for single player wise, yeah, I can see that game not appealing to you. Maybe Capcom has to mark the X on your community, because if you're looking for single player content or some substance that tailors to some story, just like Outbreak, you probably won't get it here. And I don't know what they will offer in the main game down the road. I think that's also something we're speculating on too much, but they do have new characters, they do have little perks and skills that you can use, and I hope that extends to more content down the road. Now, obviously, they could fuck this up with micros, they could fuck this up with loot boxes. This could be an overglorified cash grab. I'm not disputing that notion, but could the game be fun? Are people really dismissing it because it's not what they wanted? Yeah, I kind of do think that's kind of true. Just like everything on the internet, people are very overreactive to any sort of new news. I can't say this game is trash. I just cannot say it. I can't say this game will be as bad as Umbrella Corps just yet until I get my hands on the beta or try it out myself or listen to reviews. But until that day comes, I think people should just chill out. And everything has a different audience. If this is not for you, then do not buy it, do not support it, and just move on and wait for the next inevitable Resident Evil single player title, which will come down the road. I don't get getting pissed at side games. Like, if I play Resident Evil Survivor and it's really as trash as they say, you think I'm really gonna get mad about it and say, oh, here's these great Resident Evil mainline titles that I can play, like RE3, like Resident Evil Remake, like Resident Evil Remake 2. I'm going to be solely mad at this side game that really means fuck all. It's just a gun survivor title. Imagine the fortitude something like that takes. Imagine how stupid you can be to just simply discredit something because it's a side project and you really have no idea how the ultimate quality product will turn out at the end of the day. I'm not saying it can't be trash. I'm just saying maybe, just maybe, on the cusp of announcements, you could end up eating your words later if the game actually does turn out to be a fun experience once people test it. I'm just saying, fam. I'm just saying, like, I don't hate it. Sure, if it was Outbreak File 3, sure, if it was something else that was a bigger announcement, I would take it, but I already knew that Capcom was gearing up for next generation with next-gen RE titles, with next-gen titles they are working on that we don't know about yet. They are gearing up for that, obviously. And this game is probably just to scrape by and get a little bit of revenue. Every company does this. Every company follows a trend every single time, and you just, at this point, I just think you can't be mad at it anymore because everyone does it. At least it's an experimental side game and is nothing that will hurt the mainline entries at this point going forward. So that's what I think about Project Resistance. Could it be an interesting online experience with friends? Yeah. Does it have problems? Yeah. Are people overreacting? Yeah. Is it a wait and see affair? Absolutely. That's what I think about this. Like, you know, it's not the end of the world, man. I mean, it's a side project. I mean, I think it is canon to the RE-verse because they did mention that this takes place outside of Raccoon City somewhere. But at the same time, these are random scrubs that could get killed off by the Mastermind, so we don't know what's going on with that. All I know is that it's not affecting mainline at all. So I can't get pissed at Resident Evil side games because this has been something that Capcom has been doing in between big games for a long time. This is how the RE series goes, baby. I wouldn't be surprised if we do get like maybe a Revelations 3 after RE remake. I wouldn't be surprised if we did get more games in vein of multiplayer offerings. If I wanted something, I would say it would be either Outbreak File 3 or a multiplayer variant that's just like the Mercenaries, because I used to play competitive Mercenaries in RE5. I love Versus. Versus was my shit. Team Slayers, Team Survivors, it was an overall fun experience. And I think Resident Evil is going to always have those sort of multiplayer style games, either in the form of side games if this works out well, or in the form of something else like co-op. You never know. It's not like this series is exempt from trying out ideas of this nature. There's shit like raid mode, where you're basically fighting monster gauntlets anyway in certain areas. So I don't understand the frustration. Unless this is a bad game, I don't think people have anything to complain about if you can easily skip it. I mean, fuck, man. I think what people like to do these days is they don't give anything a fair shake, and if it doesn't appeal to them, then they're out. Well, fine by them, but maybe this will find an audience. Like I said before, it's like, even bad games, it's like, fuck, I hate playing them, like Spawn the Eternal, but sometimes you can get a good laugh out of them. Sometimes it is encouraged to have something bad, to treat something as a positive. You never know what could come out of it. We don't know the quality of this game yet, and until we see it, I'm just going to reserve judgment. If it is a fun title, if it is fun with friends, if it does have some appeal to it, challenge, skill, etc., if it is fun to beat people up with Mr. X, if it is a cheap price, then I'm gonna pick it up and try it out and see how it is. That's the way the cookie crumbles. You gotta give something an honest shake, and if it turns out to be trash, then yes, you can show your dismay, but pushing everything out of the gate and saying that it's going to be trash and you haven't played it is the stupidest thing someone could say to me. Like, I just cannot do a Ghost review. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I can't be like that anymore, because I feel as though it's not honest, it's not genuine, and it's not fair. That's how I feel about it. If it is a blemish on the RE series, it's not going to be if you think that way, because it is a side project that has nothing to do with the mainline canon so far. As far as we know anyway, because that tidbit about this team being on the outskirts of Arklay is questionable, and this antagonist, this Mastermind, he kind of looks like Albert Wesker, and I think that was kind of intentional. But yeah, so far the multiplayer looks like a mix of Revelations 2 raid mode, and it looks like a mix of Agent Hunt from RE6. And I mean, maybe people like those modes. That had an audience. I like being the Ustanok in RE6. I thought it was great hunting people down and finding them, or hunting people down in Agent Hunt. I think one thing they do need to fix is the monster controls, because they were ass in Agent Hunt. I think the monsters, they definitely have to control well despite being tanks. So hopefully Neobars takes that into advisement when making this game. But hey, I guess I'm just being the only one that's semi-optimistic about it. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Do you guys really like these little asymmetrical multiplayer games, part of being a trend, etc.? Will you be playing Project Resistance or not? Sound off, let me know. Hopefully you liked the video, and once again, take care.